So I grew up as a kid in the ministry.
Did you know you had a reputation?
My upbringing couldn't have been more different than Dave's. So I got a job on a credit union, and that's where this guy worked. There's just darkness in those years.
It was kind of a challenging thing to navigate.
Something is telling me this is wrong. Get them out of here. We shouldn't have lived.
I just so deeply wanted her to come to know Jesus.
And I started thinking, well, that's what I need. I need somebody to save me. And like that, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Okay, so what does this mean for me?
So I wrote this really long letter and I put it in his truck. And somebody had asked me, well, what has changed? And I just said, everything. Welcome to Changed Lives, a special limited series in which I explore the incredible stories of the people behind the scenes at Life Action, a ministry with the mission of reviving relationships through transformative events. Each of these individuals, my coworkers, have experienced God move in big and unexpected ways. And the more I heard their stories, the more I thought, people need to hear this. In this series, you'll get a first-hand look at how God is working in and through the people of Life Action, the challenges they face, the faith that sustains them, and the lives being transformed along the way. Their stories are powerful. Today's episode is a little different. For one, the tables are turned, and I'm the one being interviewed. In this conversation, my husband Dave Martin and I share our story and the unexpected ways God brought our lives and our paths to Life Action together. Dave grew up as a Life Action staff kid, shaped by the rhythms of ministry life. I grew up just down the road in Buchanan, knowing almost nothing about Life Action, except for the stories we made up about what we thought happened here. Our worlds looked pretty different. In this episode, you'll hear how our paths eventually crossed at work, how Dave shared the gospel with me, and how God used that relationship to draw me to faith and ultimately here to Life Action. Two very different stories brought together by grace and transformation. As you listen, consider how God might be working through the intersections of your own story. Life Action exists because lives are still being changed, and because friends like you walk alongside that work. Thanks for listening. Well, I am not used to this chair. I think I might prefer sitting over there. But we have turned the tables today, and in the hot seat is me and my husband Dave. And Lori has graciously offered to do this interview. In fact, she demanded to do the interview. So
I wanted to do it, yes.
So here we are.
Before we dive in, I want you guys to tell me what your role is. Stacey, we're going to go ahead and start with you.
So I am the marketing and communications director for Life Action, which basically means I get to help tell the story of Life Action and its people. So it's a super fun job, and I love it. And my husband doesn't work for Life Action, but as everyone will soon find out, he's basically been a part of it since birth. So I'll let him tell you what he does.
Yeah, I work as a facilities manager for a financial firm in the area and take care of their buildings and properties. But as Stacey mentioned, I do have a history with Life Action.
Well, then let's take off right with there. What is your history with Life Action?
Yeah, so I grew up in kind of as a kid in the ministry. My mom and dad are Darcy and Debbie Martin, and they've been interviewed in this already, but they met here when they joined the team and got married, and so I was born into Life Action Ministries, and my dad still serves here today. So I grew up here. The first 5 years of my life, I grew up on the camp property and lived very closely with Jimmy and Lori, and really, I look to it as a great childhood memory and just a lot of great history there growing up in the ministry, and a lot of just formed by many, many ways by who Life Action is and the impact that they've had on my life, even though I've never traveled on a team or been on staff for a long period of time. It's had a profound impact on my life.
I think we do want to ask, like, how many siblings do you have? Because I'm going to have a comment on that when you lived on the property.
Yeah, sure. So there's 6 of us kids, And for those of you who don't know the Martin family, each of our names begins with a D, and so
Mm.
I am second in that order.
And how many boys?
There's 4 of us boys and
4
2
boys,
girls,
2
so
girls.
yeah.
And so when you were living on the camp property, I just want to ask, did you know you had a reputation?
Oh, do tell.
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, the first 5 years of my life, I lived there, and I think when you're 5, like, you're probably oblivious to all of that, so, um, I don't know that I specifically had a reputation. I sure, have heard about that, in the years to follow, um, but, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of stories that go back to things that happened on the campground. My brothers and I were very active and sorta ran around the place like we owned it, even though we
Mhm.
were, you know, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and, yeah, so there's definitely some stories.
What was their reputation, Lori?
Well, I'm just saying that it was the Martin boys. It wasn't just you, but it was the Martin boys.
Mhm.
And yeah, they were all boys. And then I turned around and had 4 boys and went, "Oh, poor Debbie was dealing with this." But yeah, they were sweet, but they were very active.
Very active, like letting out all of the air from the semi truck trailers from
You
the
know,
tires.
I forgot about that one. I should have done better research on that.
I've heard the story since coming here.
Is there
and
any that you're embarrassed about
Well,
or proud
and
of?
I do, yeah, I mean, there are some memories, I specifically, for whatever reason, the house that you now live in, Lori,
Mhm.
there are some trees out in between the road and your parking area, and I specifically remember being over by those trees, and Dan and Vicky Puckett lived in that house when I was there, and I just remember I thought it was cool to see if I could strip the bark off the tree, and was stripping it off when Vicky pulled in, and I remember her having a conversation and then talking to my parents about that. I think Nancy DeMoss Wolgemuth, she would live in a motorhome on the property during the summer some of the time, and so we would see her from time to time, and my brothers and I would affectionately refer to her as Nancy the Boss. And
That's a new one.
yeah, I'm sure there's some
Squirt
stories there
guns. You
too.
would go over
Yeah,
there with squirt
I think
guns when she opened the door.
shot her with squirt guns before, and
Waiting outside the Canfields
oh yeah, the
picture window.
Canfields. Yeah, we were good friends with the Canfields. We'd go
Mhm.
down and want to play with them. Apparently, I mean, these are just stories I've heard afterwards, but one time we went down there and wanted to play with them, and Steve answered the door and said, "Well, we're all having dinner together right now." So we said, "Okay, like we'll just wait." So we just stood there and stared in the windows and watched them eat dinner till they were done.
It's a unique opportunity to live at the camp property. You got a lot of acres of mischief, probably.
Oh yeah.
Stacy, how about you?
Oh, my upbringing couldn't have been more different than Dave's. I am born and raised in Buchanan. So I bleed maroon and white. Go Bucks. And I knew very little about life action
Mhm.
growing up. I am not from a family of believers and raised by 2 incredible parents. I had a very idyllic childhood. We didn't have a lot of money. My parents were high school sweethearts, met Future Farmers of America class at Buchanan High School. And then they got married right out of high school, had me soon after. And so for a while, it was the 3 of us figuring it out. My parents were young and worked really hard. And Dave grew up in a trailer. I also grew up in a trailer, although my trailer was out on Madron Lake Road, out in the country, across the yard from my grandma. And so I thought we had everything we ever needed. I mean, we had food. We didn't have a lot much else, but we spent so much time outside. Like, our house was like the hangout because my dad was the oldest of 5. So all of his siblings also lived there at my grandma's house. So just a lot of time spent outside playing wiffle ball, exploring through the woods. It was great. It was perfect. It was a really perfect childhood. Yeah, I went to school at Buchanan. I graduated from there and just played sports and just really was connected to the community. Again, I didn't know much about life action, A lot of people growing up in Buchanan, if you weren't from like a faith community, we actually didn't know. And so because we didn't know, we would make up stories, not sure what's going on. Wow, they have some really cool beach toys. And so I've told this story many times before, but growing up, we would hang out on the other side of Clear Lake at Fuller's. And then the thing was, you would swim across to the Life Action Beach late at night when it was dark and everybody was gone, and then you could jump on the blob. And so trespassers really is what we were.
So you were one of those.
I was one of those. Yeah, yeah. So I grew up literally on the other side of the beach, from where Dave grew up. And so, yeah, it was just a different childhood. Faith wasn't a part of it, but it was, I don't know, it was a cool childhood. From a big family. All my family lives here, and my
Still
parents.
does?
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, I always joke that we're related to about a third of the community, or then connected by school or marriage to the other third of the community. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's a large network, which is what makes Buchanan so beautiful to me. So,
So you graduated high school from Buchanan? Okay. All right. And you went all the way through and you were homeschooled, correct?
I was homeschooled for a few years. Went to a Christian school for some years as well, and then I did public school 7th through 12th grade at Niles High School. So yeah.
So you were attending Niles High School, you were attending Buchanan High School. I'm curious when you actually finally met.
Well, yeah, we were rivals in terms of community, separated schools. Dave is a little bit younger than I am, so I'm going to beat him to the punch on this joke. Because when I graduated, I think you were in maybe middle school.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have really known each other in high school, nor would we have traveled in the same circles. Yeah.
Now, for the audience that's listening right now, I know they're going to be curious what the age gap is because I think we would have all assumed he was older.
Thank you.
So could you tell us what the age gap is then?
Yes. He is 4 years younger than I am. Yeah.
That's not much at all.
It's not much at all.
No.
Okay.
But what we make up for it in energy level.
This is, I know you both. Yes, I can see that one. Yeah. Okay, so before I kind of dive into your relationship, what did you do after high school is probably my question. Dave, what did you do?
Yeah, so I was just, grew up after we had moved away from the camp. I moved over to the west side of Niles, pretty close to the ministry center here, and it's still where my parents live. And yeah, attended Niles and kind of became interested in maybe going into a field that involved like working with my hands, and was thinking home builder at the time. And so I did 2 years of community college at Southwestern, and worked for he was my building trades teacher in high school, and worked for him during high school for 2 years, and then after high school for 2 years, worked for him kind of on the side while I was doing college. And so pursued that. And then after college, went to work for another builder in the area, a bigger custom home builder, and got my builder's license and pursued that. And that turned into different opportunities for my career, and sort of went into more of the maintenance field and became a facilities manager. Did that for quite a few years and still doing that. So, yeah.
Okay. Stacey?
My story's a little bit windier. So I graduated from Buchanan, obviously, and then originally I went to play softball for LMC, and realized after about a semester of trying to go to college full time, and I had to work too, to pay for college and stuff, and trying to be on a softball team, that it was a lot. And so I decided I didn't really love playing as much as I thought I did, and so decided to forgo that. And so then I transferred to Grand Valley. So I went to Grand Valley and got my 4-year degree in history, actually.
I did not know that.
and which qualified me to basically work at Cracker Barrel. My dad always told me to go into sales and marketing, and I thought I was paying for my own college, so I should be able to study whatever I wanted, and I love studying history, but he was probably right. And eventually I do go into that. But so I got a degree in that, and then I actually left the area, and I went and moved to Washington, D.C. for a while. And I worked for a civic education group out there, so called the Close Up Foundation, which is a super cool experiential education, civic education. So I would get students from all over the United States. I'd get new students every week. And then I would teach them about government by actually going and experiencing it. And so we would talk about the legislative process in the morning, and then I'd take them to watch Congress in action. We'd meet their senator, we'd meet their representatives. The next day we'd talk about how the judicial process works. I'd take them to oral arguments for the Supreme Court. So it was cool. It was like you had to like be able to think on your feet like that. It was experiential education, but flexibility like at a top level. Because I mean, with working things that require logistics, we would get students in. We'd have 200 students every week, and sometimes traffic, and we wouldn't be able to get to our next appointment, or the speaker would get tied up who was coming in, and so you'd be on a stage with 250 kids, and you'd have to keep them entertained, Well, so that was super fun, and learned a lot about education actually doing that. So that when I came back home, I decided, maybe I should be a teacher.
So how long did you do that?
So I did that for about a year.
Okay, a year, and then you came back here.
Yeah, then I came back, and I had during that time I'd been going through like education courses. So eventually I got my master's in education, and I decided I wanted to be a secondary school teacher. Okay. And so while all that was happening, I actually did get married, and I moved from being, going through getting my education, and I took another detour. And for 2 years, I worked for the State Department in Lansing. And I was an election law specialist, which meant that I traveled around the state teaching local election officials how to run elections and how to do recounts. And I wrote the curriculum for election training for the state of Michigan, and we were trying to get it to digital. This is like back in the mid to so like 2006 or something like that. And wrote a grant for that, and it got accepted. So then they sent me to New York for the Pew Charitable Trust, and I was working in all of that, trying to get this onto a format that election officials could learn it digitally versus traveling everywhere. And in the midst of all that, I got pregnant with my first, and I decided, okay, I'd had my teaching certification, I wanted to be a teacher, now I was going to have a baby. I can't have a baby without being around my family. And so a history teacher job came available at Buchanan High School. And so this was in 2008, and I moved back home and had Cy and became a high school teacher. Okay. And so I did that for about 10 years at high school.
Wow. That's fascinating. And you found out you were pregnant. Was that hard for you to go, wait, now I have to change?
A little bit. Yeah. Because up until that point, like I really valued my freedom, and I have a strong tendency to be a workaholic and to be like driven and ambitious. And so in many of these roles, I could envision myself staying in those roles forever. Right. Like even when I was in DC, I was just really attracted to like the energy of that city, and I thought I would stay there. And then I decided to come back, and then I could see a career in Lansing, and I thought I could do that. And then, but thankfully, God has planted in me a really, even though I have a lot of ambition that sometimes is overly ambitious, has planted me firmly here. And my family, like the rootedness of my family, has always been a really big motivator for me. So I grew up around all my cousins. I wanted my kids to grow up all around all their cousins. I wanted them to know their grandparents. I wanted them to be able to like go to their grandparents on the weekend. And so it's when I became pregnant with Cy, like it was an obvious choice. Like I've got to get back home. Like time to switch gears. So
Okay. So you guys have been explaining to me your lives, and they're pretty here, even though you're in vicinity to each other.
Yeah.
Tell me how you guys finally get
I
connected.
know, we have such a long, windy story.
It's good though.
Well, all told, my teaching career, in DC, and then I did a long-term sub position, and then I was at the high school for about 8 years. So it was about a decade. And I had 2 other children by that time. And it was in 2016, and my oldest daughter, Tala, I picked her up from school one day, and she said, "Mommy, you forgot to send in my birthday treat." Oh, I'm gonna cry already. and and it hit me like I totally had forgotten, because remember that like overly ambitious thing? When I was a teacher, like I poured everything into that. Like I ran the herd, I ran student council, I like poured a lot of stuff into my students. But what happened is I had done so much there that sometimes like the little ones that I had that were mine, things would slip my mind, or I'd be doing so much that things would fall. And so like I was like, I cannot believe like I'm spending so much time pouring into other people's children, and I'm taking my kids and dropping them off, and like I'm not pouring into them. So that night I got on my phone, and I just researched like flexible jobs for moms, and real estate came up. And so I decided that night I was going to get my real estate license, and I wasn't going to teach anymore. So that took me a couple of months. Her birthday was in October. By December, I had my real estate license, and then I told the school and my students I wouldn't be coming back for the second semester. I was going to stay home. My youngest at that time was like a year and a half. And so I became a real estate agent for 2 years and sold houses. And that was great because I was flexible, but it's so rude because people want to see houses on nights and weekends. I'm like, come on. Like, I don't want to be showing them. So I will answer your question. I worked with somebody who was a lender at the time for Honor Credit Union. Dustin Jankowiak. He is the owner of Second and Main Coffee House. And we became good friends, and we did a lot of deals together because I could trust him. Like, it's really, when you're in real estate, like you find lenders and you just work well together. And so one day he was visiting me in my office. We were talking about a deal we were working on. And I had always been really involved in my community, and I had like started some side businesses, did a lot of like community involvement. I was like on the chamber, a lot of like promoting of my community, and I was a writer and I had a blog. And I said, Dustin, if there's ever a job where you work at Honor Credit Union, like where the job is community involvement and like, getting the word out to the community, like, let me know. Like, I think I would like that. And he's like, we don't have a job like that. And I got on my phone and I looked on HonorSing, and it said community and brand manager. And I'm like, you do have a job like that. And it's open right now. And he was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I applied for that job. So I went from teaching, and I decided to jump into a whole new career, which, as you're probably telling by now, is like a theme in my life, the jumping. And so I got a job at Honor Credit Union, being their community and brand manager, and that's where this guy worked.
Oh. So what was your job at that point?
Yeah, I was a facilities manager for Honor, and so took care of the buildings and properties that they had. And I'd been there for some years. Part of the role of one of my former jobs was that employer had the maintenance contract with Honor, and so I worked for Honor on a subcontract basis doing maintenance, and then they brought me on 5 years after that full time on staff, and so I became their facilities manager and was working up at Berrien Springs in their headquarters, and just still single, and I think I was probably 35 at that point, something like that. So
Okay.
yeah.
So that's where did you meet literally at Honor?
Mm-hmm.
What was your
Yeah.
first impression?
Oh, I thought she was beautiful. Yeah.
Smart answer.
Mm-hmm.
And yours?
So we were friends like from the start, but I think it's really important to say, like, during this time of transition in my life, like I had gotten a divorce. And so then I was a single mom with 3 kids. And this this new role to me actually meant a lot of like stability and security in my life to be able to kind of face this new reality. And so I was navigating a lot of those feelings too, of what that meant and what that looked like. And that definitely came out like in a lot of different ways.
So you weren't really looking for anything.
Mm-mm.
hmm And you were looking?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always been single and was always had my eyes open, and so, yeah, I was looking, but, I think, it was it was kind of a challenging thing to navigate in some ways because I thought she was beautiful. I thought she had a great personality. I admired her drive in life and her energy and those sorts of things. But uh, I could tell like her life didn't necessarily align with following Jesus at that point. And even though she was a good person, like I could tell she was lacking the things that uh, come with following Jesus. And so we just kinda would talk as friends, and so, uh, yeah, at that point, um, nothing serious for, I don't know, a
Quite some
couple
time.
years, yeah, so, yeah.
So obviously it turned somewhere. Can you guys tell me what happened?
Yeah, so those years, like I have some fond memories of those years. I also have like a lot of like there's just darkness in those years. And yeah, it was great because we really were just friends at work. Like I would pull him into our marketing videos, and we would just have fun. And there was definitely something different about him that I noticed, but yeah. So going back, like, I'd been divorced, um, and trying to navigate this whole new life. I had a, a pretty great job, like kind of had a path to climb the corporate ladder there. I had great friends. I had a popular podcast at the time. um, I had a lot of external, like things seemed to be going well externally. Internally, I was a complete mess and disaster. Like I know now, like I was searching for something. I didn't know what it was, but I was empty, like empty, a mess. I was making terrible decisions with my life. I was being reckless in a lot of ways. But a lot of it is like I just I had like very little feeling, like I was numb. And so it almost didn't matter what I was doing. It's like people could tell me, like my best friend would say, like, I'm not sure like some of these things that you're doing fits with your character. And I just couldn't feel like I just didn't really care. And so externally it was great. Internally it was like mess of all messes. Um and I think as I think back, like I've done a lot of thinking over the years, like, I think a lot of that feeling also started, like, years before. Um, I felt a lot of guilt with what I was doing, but I also felt a lot of guilt, like, right before I started working for Honor, like, right before I bought a house and, was at the house with the kids, and it was early in the morning. It was in the summer of, like, 2016, and Tala, my oldest daughter, came into my bedroom and like complaining of a stomach ache. And I was like, well, just lay by me. You'll be fine. It's okay. Just lay by me. And fell back asleep. And she just kept kind of like groaning, like stomach hurt. And I'm like, gosh, okay. All right, let's get up. Let's take you to the bathroom. And so I'm taking her to the bathroom. And at the same time, I hear my baby, who at the time was, gosh, 2 maybe. I hear her in her bedroom kind of making the same noises, and I'm like, "What are the odds that both girls have the flu this morning?" And I'm like, "All right, Tala, stay right here. I'm gonna go get baby." And I go to walk the 10 steps to her room, and I can't get there. I mean, it's like I'm walking through molasses. And in my head, something is telling me, this is wrong. Get out, like get them out of here. Like something is really wrong. And so I make it to her room, which felt like it took forever. And she's laying on her bed unconscious. So I pick her up. I go back to get Tala. Again, it's only 10 feet. Like I have a small house. I can barely get there. I just get out, get them out. And so I go to get Tala. She's now unconscious on the bathroom floor. Pick her up in the other arm. And now I'm like, got to get Sai, my oldest, my boy. I go to his room. Thankfully, he's not unconscious. And I'm able to yell like, we've got to get out of here. We've got to get out of here. And so he comes out and I'm drag the girls like down the stairs. Thankfully, I'd like grab my phone. We get out, take them out of the house, go on the driveway, and I call the ambulance. And my like Tala is now like starting to come to, but my youngest is just not, like she's not waking up. And so I'm like crying and crying, like, please get here. Like I'm calling the ambulance and she just will not wake up. And it's like the longest 10 minutes. And finally, as like I see the ambulance turn the corner, she like her eyes open and she says, Mama. And then she falls back and I'm like, okay, but at least she's. And so the ambulance comes, I get him in, they hook him up to oxygen. The fire department comes and there's carbon monoxide leak in our house. And the levels were like, we should not have walked out. We just should not have walked out of that. Like if you know anything about like the levels in my bedroom were 700. We shouldn't have lived. Like we should have all fallen asleep and that would have been it. And Tala, like God worked through her to like save us.
Right.
So after that, like, then the question's like, how did that happen? Like, you have a brand new house. Well, here's where the guilt comes in. That night, all the kids had wanted to ride their bikes out in the driveway, all the neighborhood kids. So I pulled my car into the garage. I never pulled my car in the garage because all their stuff was in the garage. Shut the door. I had one of those cars with a push button, and I must not have turned it off. I thought I did. I must not have.
Oh, your car itself.
So my garage was right underneath my bed. So my car must have been running all night in my garage, filling my house with cars. So now I'm dealing with, I almost killed my kids. Like, so that on top of like they're having to deal with divorce, I almost killed my children. And like all of that, I just carried a lot of like guilt and shame and pain and all of that. And then I think that all just contributed to like what I was bringing into this world. And so then I meet Dave, and he's a friend of mine, and we talked.
Can I ask you this though too? You had mentioned earlier there was something different about him. Can you expand on that? Because I think he's different, but it's probably not the same thing.
He had grown out of his mischievous phase by then. Dave, everybody loves Dave. You won't meet a person that doesn't. And yes, it's because he's kind and sweet and willing to help anybody do anything. But it's also because you can tell that he knows who he is and who he serves. And so he, even if we were to like, everyone's like, hey, let's go out for happy hour afterwards, sometimes he'd stop by, but he's not like partaking in it, and so just little things like that. I'm like, well, that's, why wouldn't you, but he just had this calmness about him and this assuredness of like this peace would just like radiate out of him. And I'm like, I don't know where that comes from, but it's like crazy. So that is what I mean by like, he's just, and I could tell like when people were going through hard times, like they always seemed to gravitate to him to like, to see what he had, that maybe they could get some of that. And so I guess that's what I mean by that.
So, yeah, I mean, it had been a little while since I had noticed her and kind of was attracted to her and enjoyed being friends with her. But, I could see some of the turmoil that she was going through in her life. And there were a lot of outward pieces that were all put together and it looked like she could manage it all. But I could just tell in some of the relationships she was pursuing and some of the things, like there was an emptiness there she was trying to fill. And I knew that none of that would fill it. And I knew that only the Lord could fill that. Um, but I also knew it was a little tricky because I didn't want to become by any means her savior, because I knew she needed Jesus, and I didn't know how to navigate having that conversation with her while being attracted to her, because it would have been real easy to just sort of get in a relationship together and she could have some of the things she was looking for in me, and then I would be a roadblock from getting her to what she really needed, which was finding Jesus. And so I knew that she was struggling in some ways, and she's a writer, and she had written a post on social media about doing this trip out to Colorado to get away and sort of find herself and look for some kind of spiritual experience. And so I knew that she went on that. And so when she came back, I just said, "Hey, do you want to maybe just go out sometime and talk about this trip?" And so we did. We went out, and just listened to how the trip went, and asked like, what did you experience? What did you learn? And a lot of it was pretty vague and general. And I think it was a nice trip, but I knew like she didn't find what she really needed. And so I also knew about the story of the carbon monoxide. And so I brought that up, and that was sort of the gateway, to ask, well, how did you see or view God in that, or God's role? And so, she said, I think he was there and he was involved. And so I kind of went off of that and just used that to share about what I believed about God, and how he is our creator, and he wants to be intimately involved in each of our lives and have a relationship with us, and he wants to fill that need in our heart. And so shared the gospel with her that night, and that just sort of became the opening to continue having the conversation. So there was a book that we began reading together, that um, it wasn't a deep theology book, but it was a book that could was just kind of an opening, to be able to get somebody thinking about God and who he is, and how he's involved in our lives. And so we just began reading that book together and using it as a conversation piece. And so, yeah, so that was kind of how things began.
It was Everybody Always by Bob Goff.
Okay.
And he was so smart in suggesting this book because, remember, I did not have any background in faith. And in fact, I probably would have considered myself, I don't know if I would have considered myself a like full-on atheist, but definitely agnostic and definitely not actually that interested. Or very skeptical, I guess would be the best way. And I think if someone had ever like tried to talk to me about that, I was always like, thank you, but no thank you. Like, and that's actually when he shared the gospel with me. And let me provide a little color commentary of him asking me out on this date, because it wasn't officially a date.
Please,
he was taking
yes.
his souped up diesel truck. He had to go get it from his buddy's shop. And he said, do you want to ride with me to go pick up my truck and we can talk about. So I think he was also trying to like show off all the horsepower of his truck, not realizing I don't like going fast. And so, but it was just a really great opening. And then on the way back is when he said, well, why don't we stop for dinner? So
Was that really the plan all along?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he
I'm
did
glad you
share the
admitted
gospel with me, and I just want to put it on record. It's the only time Dave Martin has not finished a steak dinner.
Oh, wow.
He was talking so much he didn't.
That's great. Great.
It's first and only time. But
that's great.
So after that, like we did start reading that book, and I love that he picked that book because there's a line in that book that says, sometimes people need to experience and learn about Jesus 1 teaspoon at a time. Which, if you grew up in the faith, that might seem like, what? That's stupid. No, of course. But if you didn't, and you grew up in today's culture, America, like a lot of the things are like that believers do and believe are really countercultural. And so to like throw somebody into that, I don't know, like just his approach was first like relational, like have a friendship and like share things with me and ask me questions. And I just found that to be like a really helpful way because I was so skeptical, like the first time like we would talk about that and I would say to him like, we've always been very honest with each other. And I would say, that all sounds so great. Like, I love that you love that. Like, that sounds so great for you. I don't think that I'm going to be able to follow that. Like, we had one conversation about, like, all those things seem so restrictive. Remember, I'm like a big freedom person of, like, don't restrict me, like, my movement, like, a strong independent streak. Lucky for him. And I just remember like saying, that seems like so restrictive. And his reaction was like, what? Like, there's so much freedom in it. Like, it's a joy. And I was like, I just could not, like, those two, I could not square those two things. Like, cognitively, I was like, this seems like a lot, and I don't know about all this. So,
can I ask a question though regarding Ed Viaba?
Sure.
Was he not counseling you through this journey at all? Did he give you any good advice? Obviously, you got the girl in the end, but it's a little different.
Yeah, no, that was for sure. Ed was involved in my life, and he was in my small group, and we would meet quite often from time to time, just one on one. And he knew my journey, and he knew what I've gone through, and he knew about Stacey even before we started dating, and knew that I had interest in her, but knew that she wasn't a believer. And so I certainly had a lot of friends that were cautioning me to be careful and not get too emotionally involved with somebody that wasn't a believer, because that same night that we went out and talked, I shared very clearly, like, I would never get into a serious relationship with somebody that wasn't a follower of Jesus, because that was such a central point of my life that I lived from, that no relationship would ever work out if somebody wasn't on board with that. And so she knew very clearly that night, but I think it was challenging, like trying to have a friendship, but yet somebody that I deeply cared about and saw her need for the Lord, and just how God's created us to want others to know about him. Like, I just so deeply wanted her to come to know Jesus. And but it got to the point where we were growing emotionally attached, and she at that point wasn't quite ready. And so just Ed was part of it. Some other small group leaders, James and Jesse Klein, they're former Life Action people. They were involved in my life. And so just through a lot of counsel, I just really felt the Lord moving to just say, have a conversation with her and just say, hey, you know what? Like, I really like you as a friend, and I really have a burden that you would come to know Jesus, but we just can't mix our relationship with your journey to find Jesus, because I'm not your savior, and you need to find him as your savior, and I can't fill that for you. I can't complete that in you. And so we kind of decided at that point in the fall to just kind of part ways from a closer friendship. We still would see each other at work and stuff, but weren't spending time outside of work anymore for quite a while. And so that was challenging for sure, but I knew it was the right thing to do at that point.
And what did you think when
Oh,
he
I
said
remember
that?
that conversation very vividly on my gray couch in my living room. He shared that with me, and my response was, and I can't fake it. Like, we both just kind of realized, like, we respected the truth for each other of, like, this is just not going to work. Like, you need me to be this. I can't pretend to be that. Like, I'm not there, and so that means we can't pursue that. And so it was tough.
Yeah.
It was, like, super tough, but I mean, I later realized that relationship by committee is a thing, in the Christian world. So that was a whole thing.
I like that phrase.
Oh, yeah, that was quite a learning experience. So over the course of that winter, I just kind of descended into even a worse spot. I continued to make bad choices, bad relationship choices, worse relationship choices. I mean, I was spiraling, like not necessarily outwardly, but definitely like I just didn't care.
Did most people in your surroundings, he said he picked up on it, did they know what was going on inside you?
I feel like people did for the most part, but I just had the ability to be like, whatever. Like, I'm still doing my thing. I'm still performing at work. I'm still doing this. I still have like I knew on one level, but on the other level, like again, there was something I was searching for desperately and I could not find it. And I was just not smart enough to realize I was
That's not it.
in all of the wrong places, right? And I also didn't realize that and he shared this with me later, but over that winter, like he had never felt a burden to pray for someone so continuously. So like while I'm making all kinds of bad choices over the winter, my sweet soon-to-be husband was praying for me over the winter. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely a trying time for me. I did feel the need to pray like steadfastly for her during that time, and but also felt like the Lord just wanted me to continue to just serve Him and be steadfast in who I was, and so I've always been pretty involved in my church, and there's and in the singles ministry there at the time, and there was a guy there that during that period of time that he was a single guy and he had some challenges, had a stroke in the past, had cerebral palsy, didn't have too many friends, and so I just couldn't drive, so I just felt like I was supposed to just invest in him and try to disciple him. He'd just gotten baptized, and so I'd pick him up once a week or every other week and go out to dinner with him, and he just kept saying like, I'd drop him off and he would just be like, why do you do this for me? Like, and I'm like, I love Jesus and I want to just share his love with other people and like care about him. And so, ironically, he, revealed to me, one night in a text that, he had a serious crush on me. And so I said, okay, we can no longer continue hanging out in this capacity. I still care about you and want you to follow Jesus. So that was like a frustrating time for me and the Lord. I'm like, okay, so like I liked her, but I realized I needed to step away from that and let God work in her life. So then I thought, oh, I'll just invest in the men that God's put in my path. And then, so then this happens and I'm like, what is this? Like, so I just felt
he kind of shared this story. Like we hadn't talked in a while. And so he's just kind of sharing this, he's like kind of frustrated. And I think that just kind of like opened up just another opportunity for us to like, just to be friends again. Like we had gone for a couple months of like, okay, but it's kind of awkward. Yeah. And so we could just kind of like just be friends again. And at that point, like I had like kind of started to come out of my, erratic behavior and thinking like, okay, enough's enough. Like this has been about a year of just making bad choices. And so I was starting to feel in a little bit of a better spot. And then spring came around.
Is this the good part?
This is the good part.
Okay. I've been waiting for the good part.
I know.
Yeah, no, so it was spring and I just still felt a burden for her and like, I'm not sure what really brought it on, but I just had this idea. I took a selfie of me drinking a cup of coffee and said two things I never do: drink coffee and take selfies. And I said, I'm challenging you to do one thing you never do, and that's go to church with me on Good Friday and Easter.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. I still have that text.
Yes, you definitely need to keep that.
It was so cute. And so I get this text. Here's two things I never do. I'm asking you to do two things you never do. go to Good Friday and go to Easter. And I'm like,
Did that speak to your competitiveness?
yeah. He teed
That was
it up.
smart.
He
That was
teed it
smart.
up. And I was like, my first thought was, oh, that's so cute. That's really kind of it's a good move. And I was like, I can't. Like, I don't want to go to church. And I'm like, I just don't know, And he was like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, what are you afraid of? So then he's really speaking to my, what are you afraid of? What's the worst that could happen? Like he's saying to me, and I'm like, fine, then I will go to your church if you think I can't walk in there and go. And I was like, okay, fine. So he's like, Good Friday is coming up. And I'm like, great. Had no idea what Good Friday service was about, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go to this church with him. It's Good Friday. What do you wear to church on a Good Friday? And I'm like, I don't know. What do people wear to church in the movies? Floral. Get my dress on, purple, pink. Picks me up in his big diesel truck. Takes me to church. The lights are down. Everyone's wearing black. There's like smoke. And I'm like, this is a funeral? and then I sit through the service and I'm like, oh, it is a funeral. Like, literally had no idea what I was walking into. Like, and part of me is like, you could have told me. Like, you could have given me a heads up. Like, black is what we're wearing, today. Two things happened. The first is like, Trent Griffith was the pastor. And I sat through that service and I don't know what happened. It was just like God started to like, I don't know, maybe like chisel away a little bit. And I was just kind of like blown away by the story. Okay, I'd grown up in the United States. I get Easter, Easter Bunny. I mean, sure, like cursor, like kind of, had heard, but he had shared the gospel with me that fall. I had never really heard it shared before as like a personal, like God wants a relationship with you. Like I thought like Jesus, good guy, like died on the cross. Great. That's why we have, like, it wasn't, none of it was like internal or personal. Like I said, I grew up in like, it's not like we went to church on Sunday. Like on Easter Sunday, we went on an Easter egg hunt and got Easter egg baskets. Like, that's just what it was. I had a brother and a sister and it was just family time. And it's not like we went to like an Easter service or anything. So, it's the first time I'd really like heard it and understood it. The second thing that happened is I'm going in there with him and like people are saying hi to me like they know me. And I'm like, well, this is creepy. Like, oh, you're Stacey. Oh, yes, we've heard of, oh, you're Stacey. I had no idea I was walking into church with the most eligible bachelor of Gospel City and that they all knew about me. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. So we talk and I'm like, okay. He's like, well, do you want to come back for Easter? I'm like, yeah, I want to come back. Try it. So 2 days comes around. I'm like, black. We wear black to church.
So you switch.
I walk in, got my black clothes on. Everybody's a party. It's floral. Everybody's in their Easter. But I'm like, again, really? But again, the message was so compelling. It had never hit my heart. Like it had never been a personal story that like, I just never really understood sin, or really cared about it or really thought like, I didn't really know like how it grieved God, like how we were created.
And when they would tell you that, you believed that, like that it grieved God?
I started thinking about it in that way.
Okay.
And I started thinking about a God who sent his son as a savior. And I started thinking, well, that's what I need. I need somebody to save me. I've been living my whole life. And in fact, I shared a meme on Facebook like the year before that. I was very like into like punishing my body through fitness and like doing these crazy races. And largely because inside my head was so loud. The noise was so loud of like, it was just chaos that the only way I could like clear things out was if I just punished my body. So I would do these endurance races. And so then I I had posted this meme that was like, nobody's coming to save you. Like, essentially, like, get up, get off your butt, and make it happen yourself. There's nobody coming to save you. And so for the first time I'm here, and I'm like, maybe there is somebody that comes to save you. Like, maybe that is what I need. And I start thinking less of, like, maybe it's not this guy sitting there. Maybe he has a little to do with it, but the story isn't about him.
Right.
The story isn't about us. Like, maybe there's actually something else. And so that Easter, he came. I was like, what are you doing afterwards? You want to come to my parents? That's where my kids are going to be. Like, we'll have. He was like, sure. And I was like, oh, crap.
Didn't expect him to say yes.
Didn't expect him to say yes. So yeah, we were, and after that, I just kept going. And I just.
It wasn't him inviting you. You just
He
started.
said we could, he did like, but I was just like, I'm going back. And then
we sat down after the service and had a conversation, and I was pretty clear with her. Asked her, what are you thinking about? Like, and she kind of shared like some things are stirring inside, and she doesn't know yet. And so I was pretty clear with her in that time, like, all right, this is so important that you allow God to work in your heart, and I don't want to get in the way of that. And so I want to be able to put other people in your life that can help you with that, but I don't want to get tangled up in that. And so I am going to step back, and I don't want to do what we did in the fall and get into an emotional relationship, because you need to sort this out with Jesus, because he's pursuing you, and you need to understand what that means for you. And so I had bought her a Bible and wrote some things in the front of it and gave that to her one night and encouraged her just to open it up and read it. And
get your nose in this book is what he wrote.
So no, didn't send her anywhere particular, just said get your nose in the book?
Yeah. And I had some friends that I wanted her to meet and get to know, and she went out to lunch with Andrea one day, and
And
but
Jesse.
yeah.
And Meredith.
So she continued to come to church, and I let her know like she was welcome to, come to church, but I didn't want to get too attached to her during that time, because I wanted God to work in her heart. So,
and the cool thing was, like, during that time, it actually wasn't like I actually wanted to go to church. And at some point I told him, like, well, this is my church now. So, like, and we had 4 services at the time. And at one point I tell him, like, okay, well, you go to the later service, I'll go to the 8:00 service, like, but I'm still coming.
Right.
And then I started bringing my kids. And so I remember the first Saturday, I was like, okay, kids, we're going to church tomorrow. And Sai was 10, and Tal, maybe he was 9. He was 9. Right around there. So Tala would have been 7 or 8, and Kalyana was like 3 or 4. So we're going to church tomorrow. And they go, we don't go to church. And I was like, we do now. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, what are we going to do? And I remember saying to them, I don't know, but we're going to go together. We're going to figure it out together. So they started coming, and we just started going to church. And like every week, like whatever Trent was preaching, like I was like scribbling down all I could, and then I would read my Bible, and I just started like everything just like was jumping off the page. It was like such a new and exciting experience, and like a soul searching experience, that he kind of faded a little bit. Not like I was like really developing feelings for him, but it was almost too like, okay, fine, like do what you want to do, but like I actually like I want to do this now. And so maybe we'll come together, maybe we won't. But
for that time,
still,
that was probably very good.
Yeah, still I like, this is where I need to be. And so, yeah, that was just it was a really powerful time. And at that point, like there was a point in there where like like we would still, like I would text him sometime. I remember this one point I got to the point in the Bible where Moses doesn't get to go into the promised land. And my heart was broken. And I was like, because I'm reading this for the first time and I'm like, what? But he brought the people the whole way and now he doesn't get to go. And it's like 11 o'clock at night and I never stay up that late. And I'm texting him and I'm like, why didn't you tell me this? Like, how does Moses not get to? And like, so it's like all becoming like so real. And I'm like able to text him and talk to him, which was great. And we decide at some point, like, okay, we can tell we're like developing feelings for each other, but like we really gotta like not do that. And so we didn't for a while. So we would kind of like get sucked in and then be like, okay, but we can't. But May 6th, 2019, I was sitting on my same gray couch and my kids were asleep upstairs and I'm reading and I read the part where, Jesus is talking about, in life, like the wind's going to come, the rain's going to come. If you build your house on sand, like it's all just going to crumble. But if you build your house on the rock, if you build your house on me. And I was just like, okay, that's it. I give up. Like, that's what I want to do. I can't do the sand building anymore. I can't do it on my own. Like, I can't. Like, I give up. And like that, Lori, like, it's like, trying to explain this to people afterwards was, and I'm a writer, like that. It was like a feeling of like, okay, like, I get it now. And like the things that I couldn't see before were like so obvious. There was also at a very same point, it was like a, but then it was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Like realizing my sin and like that had separated from me, from a God who now I knew and loved.
Wow.
Like I really had to contend with those two things because I felt this freedom, but then I also felt simultaneously like, oh no, like I am a sinner.
Right.
Oh no.
Right.
Like how, and so that was an interesting step to like walk through, like to really believe in the promises that like I am forgiven. And like, so that it was just wild. And life changed overnight. Like life literally changed. I remember I went with him to, there was a wedding. I don't know. I think it was like a Life Action family, honestly.
Yeah.
And there were people there who had like kind of known our story a little bit. And I just kept getting the same question from people. And I felt like people are going to think I'm a fraud because they would ask me, well, what has changed since you've given your life to Jesus? And the truth was everything. Like, everything. I don't like, there's not a thing that hasn't changed. But to say that to somebody felt like so weird to say. Like to say that to a non-believer, they would be like, what do you mean everything changed? But I was at this wedding and somebody had asked me that. And I just said, I was just honest. I just said, everything. And he just goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh, he gets it,
Yep.
And so that was huge. It was a huge turning point.
Was he the first person you called?
Well, we actually weren't talking at that time.
Okay.
We were on a bit of a forced break. I don't know. I guess it's poetic how it played out because that happened. And that next day, I was actually leading this really big leadership summit that our place of work was putting on, but we were putting it on for the community. So I was actually the host of it and like leading it. So I had a lot of like things I had to do.
Sure.
And he was going to be there. But we were like purposely not talking for a week to like really figure out like what was going on. But I had this thing that had just happened and he was the one I wanted to tell.
Right.
So I wrote this really long letter and I put it in his truck at the event. And then he was so excited that he wrote me a letter and then put it in my, like, so we went back and forth with these letters for the week.
You do have those still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it started.
Yeah, it was still challenging in some ways after that because I wholeheartedly believed that the Lord had saved her and gotten a hold of her heart. And there was a lot of evidence after that, just in terms of her restoring some relationships, like just unprompted by me or any other believer. Like she just felt in her heart she needed to go back to some people and make some things right. And I could just see that happening, and I wasn't pushing for anything. And it was just, the Lord was just changing things in her heart. And so I totally saw that it was genuine. But I was like, then I had some things to sort out in my own heart. Like, okay, so what does this mean for me? Like, um, when is it okay to make this a relationship? Like, and so um I think it was a couple months after that we decided to actually start dating. And so yeah, that was in the summer of 2019. And then we had dated all summer and fall, and then it was Christmas time of 2019 that we had gotten engaged, and so proposed to
The
her
lodge.
at the lodge. Yep. So yeah, so that was pretty neat. And then yeah, got married in 2020, COVID wedding. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
3 weeks before our wedding date, we were supposed to be getting married in a barn in Michigan, and the Michigan shut down again 3 weeks before our wedding, so we didn't have a venue anymore.
Yep.
And so we kind of put it out on Facebook like, hey, all you guys that are coming to our wedding, we actually don't have a place to get married. So stay tuned. We're going to find a spot, hopefully in the next couple weeks. And Stephen Love, he had been one of the pastors at Gospel City, was planting a church. He reached out to us on Facebook and said, hey, I have this new church. We haven't opened it yet. If you want to use it for your wedding, it's yours.
Yeah.
And so we got married at Redemption City by Trent Griffith, and Ed Villalba spoke at our wedding because at that point he had done our premarital counseling. I joined his small group. The whole relationship by committee, I joined the small group. They all had known about me.
Yeah.
It was like, and then, we got married, and then we had to navigate, like, what does it mean to be a stepdad to 3 young kids?
I think it's fascinating too to listen to you guys. I wasn't on your journey, but I was right here, and I saw your big story of how he asked you to marry him and stuff. And so I was like, man, that just feels fast. And listening to you guys going, no, this was not fast
It
at
was
all.
years.
Very long, very drawn out.
Yeah.
And just understanding where you guys were coming from now is just fascinating. So you get married. Still doesn't explain how you are here now, though.
Yes. We had a very successful honeymoon, and then we had a baby 9 months later.
Okay, I was like, you're saying you're successful. That's a little odd. Okay, yes, it was successful.
And so Dave had his mini-me, who is currently going to be our 5-year-old soon, who is would have fit in very well with the Martin brothers.
Yes.
He would have been the leader.
Oh my goodness. You
of the
post things
tribe.
and I'm like, that's the Martins right there.
Yes. We joke that with our powers combined, we have created the very first extroverted Martin. And so he is a hoot. So anyways, we're still working together actually at Honor, and now we're married, and we have this joint family of 4 children. And Dave at some point decides that he wants to start his own business, and so he leaves Honor to start his own business. And I guess I got ahead of myself a little bit, because after he did that, and then I had Dylan, and I just really felt strongly that I wanted to stay home with him. Like, I'd worked with all my other kids, and it was like a couple weeks before I had to go back to work at Honor, and by this point I was like the VP of marketing and like had a lot of responsibilities, and I just wanted to stay home with this baby. And he was like, "We'll make it work." And I'm like, "I don't know how. Like, I don't know how in one, you have your own business." And he got an opportunity, like literally a week before I had to go back, of working for the company he works for now with insurance. It was like God's like blessing on us, because then I got to stay home. So we did that for a while. People would call me and they'd say, "Okay, I know you're not working, but can you just write this one thing for me?" Or, "I know you're not working, but." And so this I started a company kind of organically as like a marketing consultant and a writer, and I was doing that. And a couple years ago, I got a message from Aaron Paulus, and I had known Aaron a bit because, Dave's been friends with the
Sure.
Paulus family forever. He was like, "Hey, we're looking for a marketing director at Life Action. Is this something you might be interested, or do you know somebody?" Now, at that time, like my business was actually growing. I was like, it's going well. And my first thought was like, oh, no way.
Right.
No way am I taking that job. Ain't happening. But I was like, oh, thanks. I will keep my eyes open. I'll keep my ears open for anybody who might be interested. And I'm like really thinking of like people I could send Aaron's way to do that. And over the next 2 months, like God just kept like poking my heart, like, maybe just think about that. Maybe just ask some questions about that. And I kept being like, I am not working for Life Action. I'm sorry, I'm not. Like, I've got a job. I've got a good job. I can do whatever I want. Flexibility. I'm making good money. Maybe just think about that. And so I reached out to Meredith, and I'm like, all right, just tell me about this role. So we go to coffee, and she's telling me about it. And I'm like, gosh, okay. So then I reach back out to Aaron. I'm like, all right, maybe I'm interested. Like, what would this be? Come in, talk with him, talk with Mike. And like it just became very obvious, like that was my next step. And so we go from Dave had grown up here, his parents worked here. I thought it was a place that you just trespassed here and didn't know what these crazy folks were doing, this revival ministry. And then I became part of it, and that was 2 years ago. So
I can't believe you've been here 2 years. When you say that, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's been 2 years.
it's been
already.
2 years. And so just I don't know, God's funny, like the twists and turns of all of it. If you would have told me 5 years ago, I would have been working for Life Action. I would have laughed. Like I couldn't put those two things together. But I don't know, just the people here, people who have like poured their lives into ministry and poured their lives into serving other, like you can't help but like just be drawn to that. And so it's been a great joy of my life to be here.
I'm going to state too, I'm not just saying this to be nice. We all know I don't do that, but it's been a joy for us to have you because you're such fresh blood, and the way you look at things, I go, oh, right, that's a really good thing, or oh, right. So for those of us that are old and have been here a long time, it's so neat to see it from your eyes and to know we are serving and doing something that matters. And it's really, I think, given a lot of people, not just myself, that energy that I think was lacking at that time. So you're not allowed to do any other job. You have to stay. Because I'm listening to you, like you moved here. I'm like, okay, I got to tell her she can't go anywhere else.
I know. Yeah. It's and a great joy of doing this podcast. Really, we started this a year ago when the snow was flying. And the whole purpose of it was just to collect these stories of people's lives and how in the heck they decided to cut. And what became obvious, they didn't really decide anything. God directed the whole thing, and all the story perfectly led up to where they were. And all they're doing is being obedient and stepping into that. And so it's just been an incredible journey for me to see how God works so intimately in everyone's lives, how he cares for us, even in the like smallest things, and just to see how people like depend on him for their provision. Like I think about you and Jimmy, I think about the Mans, I think about like the countless people they've just given it all, and like to the glory of God for that. And so, yeah.
I do find it interesting, and I think the people listening to this would, probably relate to one of you because you guys are so polar opposite of your
We are?
upbringing. And I know you'll have to search for it, but a lot of people will even, you were born into a Christian family and then you came to know Jesus at a later time. But then even just your life and how it does that is so interesting, how God brought you together. You can just see God's hand. This is the whole thing, and it's exciting. So as we're ending this, I want to know, because you had told your younger self something probably different. As you're looking ahead, what do you want your legacy to be, both of you?
For me, I've known since a young age, like my spiritual gift is service, and God's just uniquely gifted me with talents and desire to help people, and so um, I just want to get to heaven and hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant," and because I just I think that's who God's created me to be, and that's what I want to walk in obedience to do is serve Him in whatever way He would have for me. We mentioned Ed Vialba a couple times in this interview, and longtime friend of mine had a major impact in my life, and we just received word that he went home to be with the Lord. Been hard, but we're just rejoicing that he was able to hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant."
It's funny, I've asked almost 30 people this question, and I should have been prepared with an answer. But I think God's doing work in me right now, to have a better answer for this question. The one thing I know for sure is, um, I really would just want to be a good mom and a good wife. I really, really want that. My heart is so bent to like achieve and be ambitious. It really is. Like there's good in that, but there's also a shadow side to that. So I have to fight that a lot. Um, I'm learning a lot right now about the story of Jesus as a love story, and that God, pursues his people, and always. And we turn away from him and we seek things external that only he can fill, and he's constantly calling us back to him, which is so wonderful. What I'm learning, our souls can be oriented with these passions that God gave us that are so good, like passions for like acceptance and security and significance. And boy, am I heavy on the significance. And God wants us to find that in him, and to not have anxiety about these things. So that's kind of the work he's doing right now. And so this is a really incomplete thought. But in addition to being a good mom and a good wife, which is, I believe, what God wants for me. What did Mother Teresa say? Like, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. But I want to find my security and my acceptance and my significance in God, because even though he saved me, like, it's a continual process of refinement. And I don't want to be the kind of Christian that just knows a lot more but doesn't change. I'm trying to like really, really seek God for those things so that I don't have to chase the next thing. And so I can just, I don't know, reflect his glory in the way I live out my relationships with others. I want people to be able to see that in me. So I'm a long ways from there.
We are all in a process.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for sharing and for being honest and transparent. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Changed Lives. If you were encouraged or inspired by what you heard, I want to invite you to take the next step. You can support the people whose story you just heard and others like them by visiting lifeaction.org/changedlives. Whether through prayer, giving, or sharing these stories, you can be part of what God is doing to revive relationships and transform lives.